On a cold rainy night in the heart of the city, where the neon lights flickered against the wet streets and the sound of thunder rolled through the dark alleys, a poor girl named Aisha, who lived in a tiny rented room and survived by doing small stitching work during the day and selling tea on the roadside at night, found herself walking home late after closing her little stall, unaware that destiny was about to throw her into a story larger than anything she had ever dreamed of. For in a narrow alley not far from her path, a man in rugged clothes, looking more like a beggar than anyone important, was being brutally beaten by three dangerous-looking thugs who demanded money and shouted that he had overheard something he should not have. And though every instinct told Aisha to walk away because she was just a poor girl with no power and no protection, her heart refused to ignore the cries of pain, so she grabbed a stick lying on the ground, ran forward without thinking, and screamed at the men to leave him alone, drawing their attention, and in that single moment of courage that could have cost her life, she acted on pure desperation. Rushing to the wounded man, grabbing his face with trembling hands, and pressing her lips to his in a kiss that shocked the attackers so much that they burst into laughter, mocking her for kissing a worthless street man, before deciding he wasn't worth the trouble and finally leaving them both in the rain. And as the sound of their footsteps faded, Aisha slowly pulled away, heart racing, cheeks burning, realizing what she had just done, and the man, battered and bleeding, stared at her with wide eyes that held something far deeper than she expected, as if he wasn't just a random stranger, but someone carrying heavy secrets. Yet he whispered only a soft, "Thank you," before collapsing in her arms, forcing her to drag him with all her strength to her tiny home where she cleaned his wounds with the little medicine she had, fed him bread and tea, and gave him her only blanket, never knowing that the man she had risked her life for was not a beggar at all but Armin, the young and powerful CEO of a multi-billion company who had disguised himself as a commoner to secretly investigate corruption inside his empire. And while she saw only a broken man needing kindness, he saw in her the raw courage, innocence, and selflessness he had been searching for his whole life. And as days passed, he recovered in her small home, watching her struggle to earn a living yet smiling through hardship, her hands rough from work but her heart pure, and he began to fall for her silently, torn between revealing the truth and keeping his disguise, until one day when the same thugs returned, this time with bigger weapons, hunting for the man they had failed to kill. And once again Aisha stood in front of him, ready to sacrifice everything, but this time Armin dropped the act, stood tall despite the wounds, and in a commanding voice revealed his true strength, calling in his hidden bodyguards who had been secretly protecting him from afar, shocking Aisha as luxury cars and security teams stormed the alley, scattering the criminals like ants, and she stood frozen as the man she thought was a nobody suddenly straightened his suit, his voice calm, his eyes steady, and finally confessed that he was the CEO of the very company whose shining towers she often stared at from the street but never dreamed she would enter. And though she trembled in disbelief, ashamed of her poverty and fearful of losing him, he walked to her, took her hands, and told her that no wealth or power had ever given him the feeling her kiss gave him that night. The kiss that saved his life, the kiss that showed him true love, the kiss that proved she was braver than the richest people he had ever met. And with tears in her eyes she tried to protest that she was just a poor girl unworthy of his world, but he silenced her with a gentle smile, promising that her worth was beyond gold. And in that rain-soaked street, where their story had begun, he kissed her back, not out of desperation this time but out of love, sealing a bond that no money could buy, no enemy could break, and no disguise could hide. And from that night forward, Aisha was no longer just the poor girl who stitched clothes for survival. She became the heartbeat of a man who ruled empires, the queen to a king who had everything yet found his everything in her, proving to the world that sometimes, one kiss born out of fear can turn into a love powerful enough to change destinies forever.